Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second topic or the second part of Thriving in Indonesia series. My name is Robert Ian Bonnick, founder and host with our technical partners and great friends, Tropical Nomad, Ayu Guzman, and Brother Hadis, all here. So the first one, to give you a quick recap, we spoke about, right, if you're a foreigner here, you've just arrived or you've been here for a while, and you get into some kind of trouble, right? What do you do? Or to prevent getting into trouble, what do you do? And we looked at that with three experts in the areas of tax, in the areas of criminal. In other words, you're on your bike and you hit someone, what do you do, right? And then finally was visas. Okay, so that's what we did in the last session. This session is all about how do you plug into business? So how do you actually do business in Indonesia, spotlight Bali? And again, three perspectives. So one we'll start off with is real estate. Anastasio, good day. Is real estate. And we want to look at sustainable real estate as well. The second one will be Melissa. And Melissa will talk about blockchain. Okay? And the third one will be Anatoly. And he'll talk about e-commerce. All right? So my name is Robert Ian Bonnick. And I'm the founder of RIB and Associates, which is a growth strategist in Indonesia. What does that actually mean? It means that I connect the dots in about 10 different industries for people and companies to grow in Indonesia. So whichever resources, whichever people you need is in the network, and I connect the dots for you. All right? So that's what I do. Now, the three guests on today, the first one will be Terrier. Now, Terrier is the CEO of Seven Stones Indonesia. Now, Seven Stones Indonesia is a very well-known and respected company here in Indonesia, Bali / Indonesia at large. Now, I'll let him introduce what he does. I think that'll be nicer for him to do it. So when it comes to, I think next was Melissa. So Melissa is CEO and founder of Satoshi 21. She is so much more than that. She's my sister. I love her to death. Not to death. Love her. Keep it love. So she's going to be talking about blockchain. And I think there'll be a few other things in there that she's got for us, judging by the notes that she's been taking. Then we have Anatoly. So Anatoly Spektor. I've known Anatoly for some years. All of them for some years, actually. Anatoly is very active. He has a podcast that is a top 3% podcast in the world, known as 10 Million Journey. I'll let him explain what that means. Also, he consults with governments and billion-dollar companies. And the final thing which I'd like to bring to note is that he scaled two e-commerce businesses to 6 figures. Right, so that's Anatoly. So these are the three experts that are going to be talking today. And what I'd like you to do is to come ready with your questions if you have them. Remember, the first questions will be on camera. If you don't want to be on camera, wait till at the end, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind talking to you one-on-one in a personal way. All right, so what I think we'll start with, we'll start with Terrier Nielsen of Seven Stones Indonesia. Please put your hands together. Thank you. It's a hot mic.
So I can't move out of this box, supposedly. Remind me if I do. Brief introduction. I came to Indonesia first time 1970, which tells you that I'm a lot older than most others here as a little kid. In and out since then, moved there full time in 1993. Started off mainly in Jakarta. Managed to get married to a Balinese girl and divorced later on. Moved here 2004. Then it was either real estate or tourism, and we ended up doing a lot of real estate. So we started off building villas. I was actually, when I moved here to Canggu in 2004, there was 3 villas and 1 warung. There was nothing else. It was totally empty. Since then, it's changed a little bit, and I sometimes don't feel guilty, but I was part of building what was known then as Canggu Club, which is today Finn's Recreation Club, and that kind of created the wave of people moving here and a better infrastructure, school, sports clubs, and so on. Through the years, we built a lot of villas. We kind of Stopped that around 2010. Then we were more into like a marketing agencies. We've had relationships with Ray White, Harcourts, and others. 2016, we then launched what we do today, which is Seven Stones, and something I've always been passionate about or picky about is actually regulations around anything related to real estate. So we struggled to find, like anyone, I guess, or most of you, proper legal advice in Bali and not in Indonesia in general. In Jakarta, you'll find top lawyers. We were trying to get law firms from Jakarta to come and work with us. In the end, we then hired a little team that we thought was going to be an in-house team advising real estate investors. But I think then people realized that they could actually come and ask us about legalities and setups and what to do and not do. So that grew into probably today our main business. A little bit later, I'm originally from Norway, so we started talking with the Norwegian embassy. So we have a substantial office also in Jakarta where we do similar to what we do today. So in addition to retaining our real estate arm, we do today what we call market entry services. So we set up PMAs, we do visas, legal advice, transaction management, exits, financial planning, and so on and so on. And I guess through the history of that and evolvement of that, Bali has been and still is very much focused around real estate and business setup. And I guess in some ways it makes sense that I talk first, in the sense that the only way that you can do business is actually having a company. If you don't have a company, you cannot do business here. It's that simple. But I'm going to talk a little bit more maybe around what I see with real estate and my observation. And I think a lot of questions around that is often related to, are we seeing a bubble? Are we seeing a peak? Are we seeing too much tourists? And so on and so on. And I think the first time someone wrote about and warning against mass tourism was 1934. It was a Dutch newspaper. And that dialogue is still ongoing. So I don't think we are seeing any peak or stop to what goes on in good and bad. I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, and I like to engage with people, and we'll get to that with Q's and A's and questions. Like I said, if you want to do a real estate investment or any investment for that sake, you must do it through a company. There's no other way. End of story. There is a lot of agents and a lot of developers will say that you can buy a lease privately as a tourist, and the only reason for why that works is because a lease is not a title. It doesn't get in front of the agrarian office, or the BPN as it's called in Indonesia, which if it is, and it will soon be demanded to come in front of them, they will request a kitas or a visa, like a work permit or an investor kitas or something like that. That structure also has a lot of other challenges, taxation, immigration challenges, and so on and so on. I guess pre-COVID, I sensed that we experienced a bit of a change, in the sense that we saw a lot more conscious people coming in the sense that people were, very concerned about environment, concerned about, what was going on. COVID came, and since then, I think, unfortunately, it seems like we've forgotten about that, or the market in general, and right now there is an absolute mess of what goes on, in good and bad, off plans. Everyone is a developer, and by all means, people want to make money, but I think 90% of who's out there today being a developer have no idea what they're doing. They think that Bali is a place that, as long as you know the uncle or the brother or the sister of someone, then you can do whatever you want, and you can just bribe off a bit, you can build in green belts and whatever else. Those days are over. And if you pay attention to Indonesia today, and a lot of us forget that Bali is actually part of Indonesia. Indonesia is seen today as one of the strongest economies in the world. It's a geopolitically fairly neutral country, so it has friends all over. They deal with China, they deal with Russia, they deal with Europe, they deal with the US. I think that's a strength. At some stage, it's going to be the fourth largest economy in the world, quite soon actually. It has everything, natural resources, massive growth potential. In the confusion that we see now with the new capital, maybe you've heard of that, maybe not, but Indonesia is building a new capital in the middle of nowhere in Kalimantan, which I think long-term is a good move, but right now it's a bit confusing. That actually benefits Bali, because a lot of people then say, well, is it Jakarta, is it the new capital, or where is it? And they say, let's just be in Bali, and we can fly to the new capital, we can fly to Jakarta, we can get around in the region quite easily. But what I was getting at is that 2020, during COVID, the Indonesian government passed something they call the Omnibus Law, which is a revolution, basically, of their legal system, and that is now slowly, actually quite fast, trickling down into the regencies, the provinces, governing everything. And there's a lot of confusion, in all fairness, because government officials, in between ministries, in between central and province and regencies, there's a lot of confusions. What is, already up and running and what is not. But one of the positive aspects, and me and Rob has spoken quite a bit of this, is related to real estate, and that is on zoning regulations. So when you look at what goes on with that, I say that Indonesia is kind of normalizing itself. It's becoming a proud nation. It's lifting up. It's taking more space internationally, but in a good way. And one of those aspects is zoning. So when you look around you here or anywhere, it doesn't look like there are zoning regulations, but there actually is. And these have been constantly revised and is now very, very strict. People are going to wake up to some serious challenges. I think last week we saw, probably not for the first time, but quite exposed, a project in Prerenan or Pantai Lima was stopped by the police because they were building in a green belt. There are very firm footprint regulations, so the density or what you can actually build on a piece of land, like in a tourist area like this, it'll be between 50 and 65%, depending a little. The rest should be, pools and gardens and so on. Some areas like Badung here, if you're in farming land, you're actually allowed to build, and you get 20% footprint. Except for what some of you might have heard of, and some of you may have questions around what they call LSD, and it's not the LSD that you used to hear about when you were younger, but it's a food protection program. So Indonesia is worried about food shortage. So everything that relates to rice field is full stop, no more development, except if they are in a tourism or residential zone. But if they are still farming land, it's illegal to build. And this may scare you, but today, if you have an overbuilt, or you built in a green belt or a LSD zone, you can get fined 5 billion rupiah per property, or 4 years in jail. This is in Omnibus Law. The government is currently developing, this is PUPR, which is the Ministry of Public Work. They develop systems where they can see the size of properties and land through satellites. And Badung, who is normally a little bit ahead of all the other regencies, they will use this system to obviously manage their green belts through satellite. I know, because we bring a Norwegian system to them. I'm from Norway, so we have a few companies looking at that option. But what they want is where they can send out then the land and building tax yearly. And if they find then a overbuilt, they have already a formula what that penalty is going to be on a yearly basis. And that will come with your land and build tax. And you'll pay that every year. And a lot of people don't realize this. So when you look at investing and looking at doing projects or buying a villa, whatever it is, do your due diligence, because you may end up buying something that carries a bit of luggage with it. And when the government comes and knocks on the door, which they will, you cannot say, oh, I didn't know. This was my agent. I didn't understand. Ignorance is no argument under any country's law, so also in Indonesia. I can keep talking, I guess, for days and days and weeks, but I guess it's always interesting to hear from people what experiences they have, what questions they have, and maybe Rob has some questions. He is doing an awful lot for the neighboring regency, Tabanan, which I've become very passionate about, and he talked a little bit about eco-tourism and eco-resorts, and that's something that we also do. We're trying to build a eco-community, eco-resort in Tabanan, and I think that's the only way that we can actually manage to preserve Bali in some way, by coming together and developing things we want to see rather than letting it run loose as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. So look, firstly, I just want to let everyone know that that the caliber of people, I know a few of you have just recently arrived in Bali, which is awesome, but the caliber of people that you have here is very, very high. One of the things, one of the biggest challenges that we had when we first got to Bali was finding the right advice, right? And there's still a few, 10, we'll talk about you later, finding the right advisors to give you the right advice is really important, right? So that's why we've done this series. So whoever has been invited to speak, in our opinion, are people that you can trust, right? Okay, so I think we're in Bali, so let's talk a little bit about ecotourism and property, and what can you share with us that you see is happening in that area, for good or bad. Then after that, maybe some questions. You might have some questions, it's okay. Anyone here has any questions about real estate, please raise your hand, we'll get the mic to you.
Yeah, I think ecotourism and eco-developments is probably similar to what we see in other industries like blue economy, where blockchain, and someone is going to talk about that soon, is involved in the process of how you do the fish and how you catch it. I think that's coming more and more also in tourism. People want to stay in places that have some kind of eco compliance. When you try to define what an eco-resort is, and you can use AI or find official sort of statement on that, there's about 40 different definitions. It's quite a wide spectrum of what that means, and it's still a bit of a mess. But there is definitely a growing demand on that. I think for many reasons, people want to do the right thing, as they do with anything these days. They want to reduce the footprint. They want to, basically do the right thing from an eco perspective. And I think some of us, even though we seem to forget quickly, we still remember COVID, and some people fear that that's going to happen again. So they look at places where they can, if that happens, sustain themselves and not sit in a tiny little apartment in New York or London, but actually have some space, grow your own vegetables, and have a life if that happens. And at the same time, that is a tourism that makes sense and can make very good income. And I think, talking about Bali, we can see how a lot of areas gets more and more built out, and you can talk about what a disaster that is. There is other aspects of that too, and I don't know if we've talked about it, but the first ecological disaster that Bali saw had nothing to do with real estate. It was the growth of rice fields. The water problem that Bali has today is all about rice field and the water that is absorbed, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, I definitely see a demand for that. They ask for contractors who can help with materials and ways of building, renewable energy solutions, solar panels, usage of water, collecting rainwaters, circulation, and so on, yeah.
Thank you, Terry. I mean, who here, just a quick raise of hands, who here would like to develop properties in Bali or Indonesia? Raise your hand. Okay. Few? Great. Thank you, brother. And who here would like to buy a property already built, ready to move in Bali, Indonesia? All right, that's good to know. So from a developer point of view then, you went to before, and I'm really happy to hear that about in Pereira, as you mentioned very recently, someone who was building in a green zone was found, police stopped, and you mentioned 5 billion is a fine or 4 years in prison, right, which is being imposed, and that's one of the things that we had a chat about before. But if you were a developer, maybe just starting in Bali, if there's maybe 1, 2, or 3 steps that you would give them, what steps would they be?
I think, first of all, zoning that we talked about. What is it that you're going to build? Are you going to be in a tourism zone? Are you going to be in a residential zone? Or is it something that can be a bit further off, an eco-resort in some remote area? Understand fully that means, because that impacts what you can build, how much you can build, what kind of permits you can get, and so on and so on. Second advice, I think, spend time on looking at good contractors and someone that actually has a track record, because there's a lot of details to building something, and if you don't understand that, like anywhere in the world, you'll get abused. Cement, people think cement is just cement. There's a wide range of that, iron, beams, whatever it is. And something that becomes more and more important now too, and if you are already into the development, you've heard about PBG, which used to be IMB, which is a build permit, and then you have SLF, which is the right of use, or the if it's a house, you get a right to use it as a house. If it's a hotel, you get the right to use it as a hotel. regulation is clear, so set yourself into that. You have to have a PBG before you start building. Every agent now is saying just go for SLF, including us, but be careful, because if you have no PBG and you want to do the SLF cannot be issued without the PBG. So if you have an overbuilt or something that doesn't qualify, your PBG won't work, and you will have a property that are absolutely useless. And a lot of agents tend to say that I'll do the cheaper than the neighbor, and they'll shrink the plans that they deliver to the government, and you get a permit, but it's for something about half of what you're actually building. And at some stage, like I talked about before, the government finds out and you have issues. Marketing and what are you going to do? Who are you going to sell to? I see a lot of people, let's build it and they'll come. I don't think it's that easy. You got to have a clear concept, a clear branding, a clear structure. Who are you going to sell to, and who is also going to be your end user, which is something that the investors buying your units to would look at. So I think those three, yeah.
Brilliant. So you've got zoning, regulations, and marketing. What is it that you want to actually build, right? And who for, right? Making sure there's a market there in the first place. Now, one question that's always asked, that I always get asked from people is that, can foreigners, you know what's coming, can foreigners own land in Indonesia?
Yes. You cannot own freehold, and this is where it all goes wrong. People come in with either a common law or continental legal system and try to fit that into the Indonesian agrarian law, and that we can talk about a day about that and how that came to be, the whole structure. There is a type of ownership that is called freehold, which foreigners can't. It's only valid for Indonesian individuals. But the easiest way to explain that is if I have a company in my name, a PMA, or I'm on a Kitas and I buy a hakpake, I can buy an existing freehold title, I convert it to a hakpake title in my name or an HDB title into the company's name, and later I sell that back to an Indonesian, it gets converted back to a freehold, or can be converted back to a freehold. So that way to me is like, I bought something that somebody owned, but I don't own it, and I sell it to someone that owns it. So definitely yes. There is some aspects around that, the 80 years time frame, which now we see in the new capital. There's actually 160 years, and probably that creates a presence of law that will go to other parts of Indonesia too. So definitely yes, you can, yeah.
Great. Now, any questions? Look at my watch, we have time. So Catherine, I'll give you this one.
Hi, mine's a very quick one. I don't understand semi-permanent structures. So a joglo or a house on stilts, I was told meant that you didn't need the permit. But I think that's a grey area, very grey.
It's the semi-permanent or permanent structure in terms of building permits doesn't exist. There is a building or there's no building. The terminology of a semi-permanent or permanent building only exists in the tax regulation and how they depreciate your building and your investment. If someone says that, oh, this is a semi-permanent or non-permanent building and you can build anywhere, run. Because you need a build permit regardless.
10. Hold a second, brother.
Thank you, mate. So basically what you're saying, is a foundation considered as a building?
Sorry?
Is a concrete foundation for, let's say, mobile home, is that considered as a building?
So a mobile home, like if you have a mobile truck or a container or something that can be pulled on wheels, I guess then it's not a building because it's not set.
So the foundation,
the
let's say a foundation with a swimming pool, is that considered as a building with a swimming pool?
Absolutely, and I think like anything, like even if you have, like we're building what we call an eco resort, we're using iron beams and we lift it up, we put a platform on it, and the villa then comes on top of it. Definitely we need permits and
of course,
that's a building. Yeah.
It's not considered as a building?
Sorry?
Is it considered as a building?
It is considered a building, yeah, definitely.
But not permanent structure?
Like I said, in terms of permits, there's no definition of that in Indonesian law, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, over here. So Terry, I'm going to ask you to tell us about your eco resort.
Yeah, just a few times you were mentioning your agent. So what process would you recommend for finding a good agent to assist with, getting your first piece of real estate here?
Well, I think there's an awful lot of agents out there. Some will operate under companies and brand names. Some will be individuals. I think what you should ask them about is their certification or the license. because real estate is actually a licensed profession. We tend to forget, and that's another story that freaks people out. If you operate as a marketing agent, and I know some of us, or you probably do, and I see all these groups that people do, 10 billion in fine or 4 years in jail if you do that without a license. So I would ask the person whether you have a license to make sure, because then you can have some kind of credibility and I guess retract on that if something goes wrong and they sell you a green belt or whatever it is that you're getting yourself into. Yeah.
Sorry, I like what you said about credibility. My question is there something like a resource network where we can find like solid, proven, good builders that have been through a checkup? Because I've been having some bad experiences with different construction companies, and it's really hard to find them. Is there like a lobby where you can ask or find companies?
I'm sure there is associations. I don't really know the answer to what group that would be, but I think today with the enforcement of the SLF, which is a technical spec, anyone who has a permit to issue that would be a good start. I think word of mouth is another source that you talk to people and they're happy with it. But yeah, not really to my knowledge. I think, yeah, again, you can talk to maybe agents and other developers who they use and not, yeah.
When buying a leasehold property, villa, let's say the lease is 30 years, does that entitle the landowner, the Indonesian landowner, after 30 years to take away the villa if they do not want to renew?
So that leads to about 10 minutes of explanation. Lease is something that Indonesian agrarian law doesn't really understand. Because they have the HDB, the hakpakke, and you can do, just to confuse you further, you can do a hakpakke on top of freehold, HDB on top of freehold, which the government says that's a secure lease. And then you have a lease where the government thought, you're renting a house for a year or a shop or something like that. That's what today have become the term lease. So that will totally depend on what you put into the agreement. If you're thinking it through, the extension that people sell, this is a 20 years plus 20 years guaranteed extension. That guarantee means nothing, depending a little bit on how you worded it, and so on around that. So if you don't have that worded in there, yeah, the owner will take over the land and the building. But you can word it in a way where you say that if there isn't an extension after 30 years, you have the right to remove everything. Or you extend land only, not land and building. I see these issues every day. It used to be all around nominee structures and freehold that people would buy in Indonesian names. Now it's about lease, and it's the next generation of issues and challenges. So yeah, it depends again on good legal advice and a very structured agreement. Yeah.
Great question. So are there any more questions for the real estate section? Okay. So Terry, one question from me to you then is that, now we've spoken about developers, right? If they want to develop in Bali/Indonesia at large. Let's talk about those people who want to buy, right? So this now is client-facing. I'm a person from Australia, the US, UK, wherever I'm from. I've seen Bali. I've seen that it's a beautiful place. It's amazing. I want to buy a property there. I look online. Maybe I've been influenced by one of these beautiful online ads that people are producing out of this area. And said, this property looks like what I'm looking for. What should I do to ensure it is, number one, what they say it is, and number two, that my money is secure in terms of if I'm paying for this property, is there any recourse I've got if it turns out that it's not actually even there?
I think if it is an already existing building, you would make sure you get a proper due diligence. And I think there's a lot of confusion in the market today what that means. A lot of notaries will say that they do a due diligence. I don't think they do, and that's not because I'm not, trusting the notaries, but they will do what they in Indonesian call keabsahan document. They'll look at the documents and say, yeah, this is real. It has a build permit, it has a land certificate. They don't actually do very seldom, a real check of what's there. They don't check whether the IMB is in accordance with the building. They don't talk to the banjar, the village, the permits, the taxes, and so on. So that would be the first if it is an existing building. If it's an off-plan, which we've seen come before and go away, right now there is a lot, I would also do a due diligence on the company selling it and the developer behind that company to see that they have some kind of track record. Are they real? Do they have a company set up? So you have somewhere to go legally if this doesn't work.
Brilliant. Now, just to give a little bit of a frame to that. So recently, and some people here who live here in Bali may have seen this, maybe you haven't. Maybe you want to check it out after I tell you what it is, but I won't mention the name on camera. Off camera, happy to send you the article. So there was a gentleman who's been living in Indonesia for some time, like 10 years, and they set up to do a specific project. And this project had the touch points of many people that are attracted to Bali. Come join our community, the word community. Come and live in harmony with nature, harmony with nature. Come and get a great return, money coming into your pocket, right? These three elements, and there were others, right? These three elements, but the marketing was amazing. Really compelling video, kind of like compelling verbiage. The person who was selling it, handsome dude, you know, look good. You look at him and say, if you were a mum and you had a son, you had a daughter, you say, I want my daughter to marry that guy, right? He looks amazing, spoke beautifully, and all the rest of that. So, a few years later on, what happens is they have no project. What happens is that there is no land underneath their name or anyone in their group. So basically, if anyone would have scratched the surface and done some of the checks that Terry was saying, they would have realized that this person had no title that they owned, either them or their company. So basically, there was no project. It was just marketing only. Now, they brought in millions of dollars, millions. Not one of those owners did due diligence, not one of them. And it ends up that they eventually got caught, and now it's going through court at the moment. That's why I'm not going to mention the name on camera. But but this sort of thing happens quite a lot. So that's why, you know, if you're going to do something like that here, get the right advice. Get the right team. Don't just try and come. And we have these conversations quite a lot. And I'm guilty of it still, right? And that is wherever we come from, right? Whether it's England, whether it's Norway, Sweden, Germany, France, wherever. We come with our own idea of how things should work. Why? Because it works in Australia, because it works in London, because it works in Germany. So therefore, it should work that way here. If you come in with that mindset, just erase. If you don't erase that mindset, you're going to get hurt real fast. At some point, you will. There are degrees of black and white, but no more degrees of gray, right? Along that scale, there are black and white, but it depends what is actually being imposed. So that's the reason why find the experts in the chosen area, double check, make sure that there's trust there, and follow the advice. That would be the one thing that I recommend. Daniel got your hand up. You want to sneak in one last question? Okay, so Guz, have you got the mic next to you? Then that will be the... you as well? Okay, fine. We've got two last questions, and then we'll wave goodbye to the real estate section.
Thank you for sharing that story. Robert, very good warning. Cherry, nice to meet you. How many years have you been doing this business? And if you would travel back in time to younger Cherry, what kind of advice or warning would you give that version of yourself, having this run for many years now?
So, by the way, Daniel has his own podcast. You can tell you got the gift. Sorry, great question.
Yeah, maybe 2 words on what Robert just mentioned to this particular project. I think, without mentioning names, I was quoted as an independent source of verification on titles and so on. And I actually think that the investors have had some good intentions. They've just gotten lost in the jungle and been in a area where it's been a bit on Wild West and probably been taken apart by God knows other interests. Obviously, the investors into that, like I say this when people come to Bali, they seem to open up their head and take their brain out and do things they wouldn't even do home, but they do it here. So they sign off leases and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to someone without doing a due diligence on whatever it is that they're buying into. I think for me, like I'm not a lawyer, but I think that clears my head to understand what we talk about. The culture of Indonesian law is very different from common law, even though it's heading that way. So I can understand the underlying aspect of that. I moved to Bali in 2004 when I started doing real estate, so I have skin in the game. I understand this. And I used to talk a lot like this. Since then until today, I still talk, and you have to kick me off stage soon. But I think in those days, I was a real estate agent. I sold properties, I marketed properties, I owned another. And I used to have this line saying, don't trust a notary, don't trust a lawyer, trust the real estate agent. Like, obviously, where you come from, that's like bullshit.
Oh, that's sacrilege.
That carried a lot of truth. I think it's kind of like the norms. People follow that. Everyone will say, oh, don't do a PMA, hide a little bit, talk to Agung, talk to Wayan, talk to whatever. Just be diligent on what you're doing. Educate yourself, understand the regulations in the past. They may not have been very accessible in English. Today you can find anything online if you know. Or go and talk to consultants like us and we can guide you along the way. Yeah.
All right, so if you pass the mic over there, Daniel, and I know you didn't fully answer your question. You also said, what 2 lessons would you tell to your younger self? Yeah.
I was offered Freehold land where Finn's Beach Club is today for 8 million an hour in 1997. And I walked through the rice field and I said, who the fuck is going to come here? Get me out of here. That was one. Like all of you, I thought things would crack a little bit and sort of like, nah, it's gonna, like I thought like Kuta would be a ghost town after COVID. It doesn't happen. It just keeps going. So I would have done more rightful investments in areas that I thought was just gonna lose it. Yeah.
Once bitten, twice shy. Last question for the real estate section.
So my question is about eco-construction, and as you said, you're in eco-building, resorts, and community. Is there an association or any standards that are being promoted on the island to see more eco-constructions?
The central government, definitely, yes, they're driving this, and they are issuing regulations and structures around this. There is still a lot of confusion, and I think that sometimes you'll see, and I shall not mention names, but a little bit further up the coast, you'll find a huge development where they've sort of let creation loose and let everyone build whatever they want. And the government comes in and they get really angry because they can't qualify anything of this. It's like styrofoam and funny structures that an SLF, we talked about that, or a PBG is just not possible to issue. But yes, definitely the eco aspect, the government is really aware. The Indonesian government is very progressive on getting renewable energy, eco structures and so on into their systems. They kind of look at, and some people think this is just not true, but the leading nations today of renewable energy changes, implementation, including eco building, is India and China. And Indonesia wants to follow.
Thank you.
Great questions. A round of applause for Terrier, 7 Stones, Indonesia. Great. Thank you, buddy. Now, who did I say was next? Was it Anatoly or Melissa? Melissa's put her hand up. Sorry, brother. Come on, Melissa. So before we get started with Melissa, so as I mentioned before, if you're watching live, you just switched on from Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, you're watching the Thriving in Indonesia series. I'm the founder, Robert Ian Bonnick, and we're here at Tropical Nomad. And today we're talking about 3 really important areas for those people who maybe have come to Bali and said, you know what? I really want to stay here. I want to do business here. How do I do it, right? How do I plug into business? So here we have 3 experts. You've just heard from Terrier, from 7 Stones in Indonesia. Melissa's running in the wrong direction. The high chairs here. Terrier from 7 Stones, Indonesia, talking about real estate today. Now we're going to have Melissa Kirtkin talking about blockchain and so on. And afterwards we'll have Anatoly Spektor talking about e-commerce. So please, a round of applause for Melissa Kirtkin, everybody.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to sit down because I recently had an operation, so apologies for that. Well, the reason I volunteered to be right after Terry's talk is that actually it just came to a point where what I'm going to talk is going to be like truly antagonistic what he says. And it's exactly because blockchain is a completely different structure, and it's all about transfer of rights without having any entity. So it is built to remove that trust. But I always skip presenting myself first, so let me do it. I'm now practicing on doing that more.
Come on, Minister. Come on.
Because I studied philosophy and mathematics, we usually just dive into the deep topics. And I'm from Turkey, Istanbul, and I've been living in Indonesia the last 4 years. And I studied philosophy and mathematics. I then studied cognitive sciences and started a neuroscience PhD. So all my life was actually trying to find mathematical correlations between some human phenomena, be it biology or sociology, or the last 6 years, economy. So what I am truly interested in is finding solutions for societal problems through the technology. That's what excites me. That's why I'm in crypto. That's why I'm in blockchain. That's why I gathered Bitcoiners initially, which then turned into international blockchain and crypto projects founders and contributors. That's called Satoshi 21 now. I was mostly an academic back in time in Turkey, where eventually shit hit the fan in my country, and that's was when a lot of professionals in academia, they were against the war, and there were a lot of petitioners among academics, basically being against the war with Kurdish cities, and that created like a huge drama all around, and it was very unfortunate times, actually, the last 10 years in my country. And the reason is that actually in 2013, when I started my cognitive science master's, I had friends, like juniors, because it was my master's and they were like 17 years old, and they were mining Bitcoin. So that's how I learned about Bitcoin and blockchain, way before having a financial investment idea, honestly. So it was a time when the whole structure in my country was turning into the tyranny of the elected, basically. What we call democracy was turning into that. And for me, it was like doing something and having your money, which is a very, like, it's maybe the only thing that's unique between all of us as world citizens, and doing that freely, only with the guaranteed and the safety of an algorithm and mathematical application was fascinating. So I started learning about blockchain, and then I wrote a couple of white papers, and I started getting paid in Bitcoin just for experimental purposes. You couldn't sell, you couldn't do anything with that at that point, which helped me a lot later, not being able to sell it. So the basic idea that I want to present today, because there are a lot of newbies also, but you can basically like tell me what is the most interesting part for you, for business and everything. I want to do some sort of an unpacking of the blockchain and crypto concepts. Because if I talk about the regulations in Indonesia for now, right now, what's happening and everything, it's not going to be that clear, and it's not going to be practical anyway. So my approach is to define all these terms, like what is it about anyway? Because the reason I couldn't take the opportunity of being an early investor with larger ticket sizes, let's say, although I was aware of Bitcoin, blockchain and everything, and I was fascinated by its value proposition, but I couldn't take the opportunity to actually like see it as an investment opportunity for myself, was basically we didn't have that thought, we didn't have that habits like investment, and I didn't know about the banking products and investment and everything. Nobody told me like spare your money and like start investing in few things and stuff. I was on a path to be an academic. today, what I want to show is basically like why it's relevant for anyone, why blockchain is essentially relevant for anyone, and why we need to actually like be a little bit more aware of like what the essential concepts of it. So blockchain is essentially transfer of rights without having any legal entity to be trusted, without any intermediary entity. So what you can transfer the rights of can be an asset, can be digital currency, can be some artwork or anything. But before Bitcoin, it was not possible to have any unique representation of anything on web. Because of its nature, digital things can be multiplied and copied infinitely. So there was no way digitally, if you want to send something, there was no unique representation of any digital entity, basically. And that's how digital code started to get some values as commodity, as assets, as currencies, and that's the realm blockchain and cryptocurrencies opened for us. And what I want to eventually show is that for true decentralized projects, for true decentralized currencies, it is impossible to regulate. So what we are going to talk about when we are talking about the regulation of cryptocurrencies or like how to run a business within that realm is not going to be how these companies are how these currencies themselves are regulated. It's never going to be regulated because it's self-regulated. That's the basic value proposition. How is it self-regulated, basically? So what it does, this distributed ledger technology, is it creates a cryptographic chain where there's no central verifier. When you go to a bank, you take a loan or do an investment where the other parties are only allowed to do that if they're approved with their like financial states or like the like any track records, or like if they're eligible to provide any financial product, basically. So with blockchain, you can actually track that records and securely do transactions, and this operation goes and it's designed to run even if there are bad actors. So it's designed basically like some sort of a transaction module designed to do what it's supposed to do, although there are bad actors, there are failed nodes or anything. So this is very important for the organizational side of the society, basically, because it is exactly designed to operate where there are scammers, when there are frauds, when there are ill-intentioned individuals, basically. And but then we can come to the point of questioning where, okay, well, there's still a lot of scammers, frauds, and all that. It's still happening. So why that's happening? Because when we talk about the concept of custody and self-custody is essential for cryptocurrencies and blockchain. When you go to a bank, you hold your monies not on your possession, but on their possession, and it's a contractual right between you and the bank. So they basically promise, and they decide the rates, they decide the conditions, terms, and everything, and you're actually not owning anything. You are giving the possession of, the only way to hold and own a fiat money is to hold cash, basically. And cryptocurrencies in your wallet, basically that's exactly what you're doing digitally, as if like you're holding your money in your hand digitally. Otherwise, if you're on centralized exchange, if you're on other parties, you always give that right to own your own assets. So the last few scams, when we talk about the FTX and Terra, because that's when it got very popular, cryptocurrencies, and everybody were basically thinking like, well, okay, crypto and scams, like. But I want to separate blockchain as an industry infrastructure that enables international transactions without having to need any particular jurisdiction with determined rates that is not under any jurisdiction or company. So that's pretty much what it does. In the case of FTX or similar centralized exchanges, what happens is that you strip everything that comes with the rights, human rights of having your own assets, basically. Strip that sort of ideological side, but try to have the financial benefits of having 10x, 100x with your money and investment. And it doesn't work usually. The reason it doesn't work is there's a trust. You put your trust on someone being and acting. Thank you so much. Someone being acting with integrity, basically. And it's a huge promise for blockchain or cryptocurrencies to basically say, like, well, we don't need anyone to keep their promises anymore if we do it this way. Although this is a very vague statement, it works the best when it's particularly applied to something that is so determined, like money. Money is very, it's the same unit for everyone, everybody does the same thing with that, and it's usually the medium of exchange, basically. And then, on top of it, there's now the assets classes and different investment products. But before going to that, I want to highlight that Bitcoin is designed to be an alternative cash. So it's designed to be an alternative to fiat money that is centrally issued and controlled, basically. It is not because it is against the government, states, and all these entities. It's a bit, I think, exaggerated the anarchists' side of it. It's not like wanting to have like borderless communities without any government or anything. Well, you might wish for that, of course, but it's not necessarily so. It's basically governments, the legal entities, not being vulnerable to any person having that possession for a temporary time. When you're putting your trust on a governmental entity, it's basically run by people. When you put your trust on bank or any centralized exchange, it's run by people. So sometimes there can be good people who keep their promises, never touch the investor money. Sometimes, and most times, it's not the case. But if you think about it, if you have the access to like millions, and like there might be different conditions for anyone to actually use that money. There might be so many different tragedies, and it's a different threshold for everybody to actually having to cheat at one point. So moving any financial conditions, financial terms and conditions to blockchain, it gives us the ability to not cheat for our own purposes. And keep our promises for investors. Basically, if you run any, if you build any company with investment, with money in the bank, with partners, basically what you do, you go to there are a lot of escrow accounts or like multi-signature accounts, but there's no guarantee that anyone can actually cannot actually empty the whole bank account. And with blockchain, you can basically create a wallet, and moving those funds can be in a multi-signature wallet, and it can only be moved if two parties agree to move and make that transaction partially or the totality of it. So there are actually, it's still very early, but there are actually some parts that can be applied to doing business with like more ethical grounds, basically. So now, money, we talk about currency, centrally issued currencies, and there are millions of it, obviously. And it depends on its value. It depends on the governmental policies, inter-government relationships, basically. And then there are assets. The difference between a money and an asset needs to have value in time. And that's how Bitcoin turns into an asset, although initially it was designed to be a medium of exchange. But the more it gets value, the less you want to spend it. And that's why now we're talking about the asset classes. And then there is an investment contract. And that's going to be more important in case of Indonesia right now. Because investment contract is basically what we call security. If anything is a security, and if you heard any like last debates between Ripple and SEC, or also around the time of FTX frauds, it was mainly about, like this year was all about in crypto, trying to figure out if cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and Ethereum are securities or not, basically. It's actually pretty simple to determine if something is a security or not, but nobody wanted to say it. Nobody wanted to label any cryptocurrency hastily without having to think about its consequences in investors' money. So maybe like we apply, I mean, in the US jurisdiction, there's this Howey test. And it basically says it is a security if you make an investment with money in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit to be derived from the efforts of others. So that's pretty much all of it. So that's why stocks are securities. Why this is important is because the latest regulation in Indonesia, the law just passed, cryptocurrencies are going to be regulated by OJK instead of BAPEPT, which means cryptocurrencies are going to be treated as securities in Indonesia. So before, I think the last 10 years, the legal tender was specifically IDR. So you cannot actually use it as a use crypto as any payment. This is this is very common in most countries, basically. But it means also you cannot accept payments with USD as well. So you can only use IDR. So payments as money, crypto, is not possible in Indonesia. What you could do was to use it as a trading and investment. Trading and investment was the main thing. If you think about all the projects actually coming out of Indonesia, is also mostly NFT projects. So just to say a few words about the NFTs and the fungible tokens, like what is the difference? You can think about it like fungible tokens is like money. It's the liquid assets. And NFTs, non-fungible assets, it can be your watch, it can be your Mona Lisa, probably not yours. It can be your house, anything that comes with a contractual right over an entity or commodity that has a common value. It can be like your JPEG file, and it was super overrated, and but we are not talking about a JPEG file. We are talking about transferring without having to need to have an approval from anyone, transferring the rights over something peer-to-peer, anywhere in the world, in a secure way, basically. This was not possible. So that's why it's highly important to understand the unique value proposition of NFTs, because now there are discussions about fractionalized ownership for real estate, fractionalized ownership of art, and there are so many other promising topics when they're done right. So when we're talking about the OJK and BAPEPT discussion also, what it means is that cryptocurrency is going to be regulated and treated as securities. When you buy a cryptocurrency from an exchange, hopefully a decentralized exchange, not to fall into the traps of putting your trust to have cryptocurrencies again. When you buy it, it's actually, there's no contractual agreement. And the law applies on entities, human behavior, humans as like the legal entities. The object of law is either the companies as the legal entities, or organizations, or people. Code cannot be an entity. It's not yet an entity for law, an object of law. So basically, when we are talking about everything that is crypto, blockchain, it's actually, let's say, Bitcoin, it is beyond the scope of regulations. So what we are talking about, the regulations, is basically about companies, businesses, people. And Terry made it very clear that if you want to do any business in Indonesia, you need a company. And so it's going to be more and more relevant for businesses who want to issue a token, that and this. There are different discussions. For instance, lately the Ripple and SEC law case came to a result, actually, like it was going on since a couple of years, and it was basically not found guilty. Why it's important? Because there are so many ways to collect. By the way, most times people are not clear about this. It's not that nobody knows about it, but it's not clear. But cryptocurrencies is actually kind of like fundraising means for startups, for tech products. So usually, like now, it's kind of like totally. Am I talking?
So we just got about a minute, and then we have a few questions.
About the time. Thank you for that. Sorry. So okay, just to wrap up, when we talk about the cryptocurrencies, you can make an idea that is like initial decentralized exchange offering. And anyone in the world can go there by their will, without signing anything, without reading terms and conditions mostly, without having the due diligence, having any idea of the due diligence, which is super different than the traditional investment products. The due diligence in crypto is totally different. If you know the code, it helps a lot. Otherwise, there's still a lot of trust element to actually put, but you need to understand the unique value proposition of the technology they're building, and so on. But eventually, there's nothing that binds the issuer of the token and you with a legal contract, basically. So that's the gray area. That's why Ripple, going directly to IDO, was not found guilty and not a security. And in Indonesia, it doesn't exist. The security token it doesn't exist. Utility, like the license doesn't exist. So you cannot basically tokenize your company. You cannot directly tokenize your value generating villa also. You cannot tokenize any of these. But what you can do is to create some memberships, like through NFTs, and like give vouchers and things like that, like using that NFT as a value holder. Am I? Okay. That's it.
Wow. So firstly, I want a round of applause for you. Secondly, I want to apologize. I picked up a stool. Look at the height difference. I feel like I'm on a high chair. All right, so Melissa Kirkman, Satoshi21, thank you so much. Again, you're an unbelievable brain, right? And I really appreciate and respect that and love you, right? Oh, Sister Mel. So now, maybe some of you have a few specific questions about blockchain. If you do, feel free to raise a hand. Okay, good. All right.
Sorry, I don't actually have any questions, but I have some comments to add on to what you talked about, in particular to blockchain. And I think that the Indonesian government already in 2019 declared that every protocol, everything the government does, eventually will be in blockchains, and they're doing it. So there's a massive progressive approach to that in the Indonesian government. And I think today there's something like 600 to 800 different companies in Indonesia, some foreign, some local, providing different solutions and approach to public sector and also private sector, depending on what they want to do. Also the point that you mentioned on the security or the trading or the allowance of trading of cryptocurrencies, I think shows another positive step that Indonesia is very progressive towards this. And this law is seen as a little bit like a tax amnesty, where they say if you're Indonesian or a foreigner in Indonesia, you can declare that you have these assets. We know about it. It may have some taxable implications, but you can at some stage, and Indonesia is trying to develop their own digital currency. They're trying to detach themselves from Visa and all this other stuff that goes on. That's a different story. But that's basically what they're saying, that here is a platform. You can do this, you can register, you can qualify through certified traders and so on. And at some stage that comes down into the digital currency that Indonesia has and can then legalize in a much broader spectrum like crypto and others coming into it, yeah.
Thank you, Brother Thierry.
Yes, actually, just to follow up, like last year when we had the Trade Expo in Jakarta, there was a blockchain conference with co-hosts. And the Ministry of Tourism, actually, they were presenting their super progressive attitudes towards cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and they were actually very proud to have the trading volume increase to pass Korea and some other regional countries. And actually, it's like way more common than stock investment, and the regulational side is actually following that, because there's a there's a huge openness for that, while the rest of the Western society is actually going backwards and like trying to regulate everything more and more. Asia is actually taking the progressive route to adopt it, and also obviously the NFT and trading and securities related distinction is because of a very fair reason to keep the value of the Indonesian rupiah, and you cannot blame anyone for that. That's the basic. That's their basic mission, to keep the Indonesian rupiah's value to a certain level. So that's definitely that's why NFTs for the is a certificate, and also there now for there was a trial actually. Where we talked also in SpeakuP Monday, where the golden visa, for golden visa, you can actually show your NFT as a collateral, basically, as an investment, not a collateral, but as an investment. So you can actually, if you invest in some sort of revenue generating project, that can be an agricultural product, that can be partially real estate or supply chain management whatsoever, then you can show that as part of the golden visa requirements, basically. Yeah. So it's very progressive, and that's why they're just open to regulate it and give that chance as an investment and wealth generating opportunity. Yeah.
And look, just before we go to the last question, and then we'll have Anatoly. So just a few things which I think might be interesting for you all. So, Indonesia has one of the youngest populations, which are the largest adopters of technology. Youngest, largest adopters of technology. So almost 300 million people. The average age is extremely low, right? Working age, one of the largest in this area of Southeast Asia and the world, I think. So that's number one. Number two, with what concerns Bali. So Melissa was one of the, as I mentioned, was one of the very first groups, S21, to bring together en masse the Web3 crypto blockchain community here in Bali, and one of the largest groups in Southeast Asia. Now, October the 9th, 2022, I even checked the date, yes, right? So myself, Adrian, Melissa, with 16 others who are some of the leaders in blockchain in Bali, create a WhatsApp group. Now, 1 year and 2 months later, 1 year and 1 month later, that group has produced the first layer 0 blockchain in Indonesia, the third in the world. If you don't know what layer 0 means, we'll tell you afterwards, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum are layer 1. Also, it's produced one guy, Antar Rahman, was requested by the Denpasar government to ensure that the revenue generated from crypto, Web3, blockchain would be second to tourism, right? So in other words, really diving deep, devoting a massive building called Bali Blockchain Center to ensure that Web3, crypto, etc. becomes very, very important in Denpasar. One step further, that crew there have now got together 3-4 days ago. There was an announcement made. It's called Indonesia On Chain. So Indonesia On Chain is 4 people in our group, or 5 people in our group, which are now leading Indonesia at large to become a Web3 / digitally empowered nation. Number 1 in the world. That's what they're going for. They've got, I think it's, the numbers, I don't remember the numbers. I think it's like 50 universities, and like they just this massive roadshow of blockchain around Indonesia, killing the game. There's more, and there's another one. So Melissa mentioned Farm Scent and 5 Harvest O, which is again how NFTs can be used to fund farmers and also get a golden visa at the same time. That one's moving. There's a few more. One is a top 20 blockchain project in the world. They came out of that group. Who else? There's a few more that I'm missing out. One is tokenizing real-world assets. So tokenizing real-world assets, which is the next thing, right? That's Sim Keller and his group. So tokenizing real-world assets. One person, which is a friend of ours, Rain, he has a company which this year, year number 1, will tokenize $300 billion worth of gold, tokenizing gold, 300 billion in the first year. The second year, rupiah, right? The second year will be 3 trillion rupiah. 3 trillion rupiah. For those of you who don't know what tokenizing means, tokenizing is like breaking down into a share, basically. So if I want to, for example, own gold, I can physically own gold, which I store somewhere. Or what I can do is I don't need to touch that gold. I can basically create shares of that gold into very, very small as I want, really. And now that gold, I can now sell the rights to it, right? Like a token. So I can sell it to Terrier for X amount, and I transfer the ownership to him without having to touch the gold. Right, so this is like the tokenizing. I'm sure there's a much better description, but you get the idea. So what I'm trying to say is that blockchain, you have one of the youngest populations in the world, one of the 4th largest populous country in the world. You have a government which is really backing it to become one of the most digitally connected economies in Southeast Asia, if not the world. And then you've got, like, there's one other guy, Michael. He has the largest community of Bahasa speaking, which is Republic Rupiah, the largest Bahasa speaking community, of blockchain Web3 in Indonesia. All of these guys came out as a group of 17 people, and there's still more going on. There's still more happening. So Melissa is a very important member of that group, and her group, the S21 or Satoshi 21, as I mentioned, I've kind of given her enough pats on the back, but I do love her. So think about this. When you come to Indonesia, if you have heard nothing or understood anything about blockchain, crypto, Web3, look at it like this. So Web 1 is, and a few of you might be as old as me, maybe you, Terry, maybe Mark, but he looks good. Web 1 is read only, so I can read on a screen, basically. Web 2 is I can read and I can interact with Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of these massive companies, right? But they control your attention. They monetize you. Me looking at a screen for 5 minutes, they're selling ads. They make the money. Web 3 is not only can I read, not only can I interact, but I also own. So now I can determine how that's monetized, who gets it, when, for how much. So Web 3, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, that's why it's really important that what Melissa said earlier on is crucial to understand. It's not just about cryptocurrency. It's much bigger than, it's a movement which is underpinned by some incredible technology that is unhackable, right? So this is the kind of opportunity that we have before us in Indonesia, and that's the reason why on here we have real estate, sustainable, right? We have e-commerce coming next, Anatoly, and that's why we have blockchain, because blockchain will be Indonesia will be one of the most important blockchain Web3 hubs in the world. So now's the time to come and get involved. Daniel, you have one question? So Guzman's got a mic, and then we're running late. 10 minutes, everybody, if that's okay with you, because Anatoly, you have to hear him. He's amazing as well. All right, last question.
Melissa, great to know you. I love the background from mathematics and cognitive science and also philosophy in a way. Right now I'm coming from a similar sector, study psychology at the University of Hamburg, and now dabble with a couple of companies that do artificial intelligence, blockchain, and deep tech in a way. And I was curious, Robert congratulated you on your brain pretty much, but I thought it was cool.
She's Mensa, right? She doesn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
She asked me never to say it, but I just did on camera. I'm so sorry. Mensa. I say no more.
We are building right now brains for luminaries, advisors, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the big challenges that often our customers have is intellectual property in the future in a way. And I love this conversation you just had. And I was wondering if we are moving towards digital immortality and Web 4 in particular, will there be a tokenization of the brain? Because what we are doing pretty much is building people external artificial representations of themselves and moving them next into the spatial sector. But I'm not really familiar with all the tech stuff. My partner Adrian, you know him very well, he knows all that. I'm the psychology guy. And I was wondering what you predict for the next waves of innovation here. Make sense?
Sure. Is there any part you want me to answer particularly? Because I can talk like forever.
I would love
about
particularly in the part where blockchain could particularly help to eternalize individuals through technology and accelerate the great translation that we are all participating in right now.
Yes, sure. Amazing question. So basically, of course, blockchain, the intersection of blockchain and AI has like an infinite possibilities. I started actually studying cognitive science, passing from mathematics and philosophy, also with the excitement of working on artificial intelligence and all that. But then I passed towards wet sciences, basically. The reason was that, like, I don't, like, of course, for global productivity, global workspace productivity, and labor-wise and everything, it's an immense opportunity. But consciousness and what's specific for humans were basically more interesting for me. And it still kind of is. As long as we can find real life facilitating aspects, combining the two, it's an amazing opportunity. If it's another monetization of digital twins and everything, like I just see it as a different art sort of a thing, like anyone owning something. When you talk about Web 5 and the digital identity, I think it requires a lot of conceptually unpacking all these concepts and everything to even understand the value of owning an identity, basically. Privacy, for instance, is something that is so underrated, because most countries like Asia, Middle East, and like these regions where I'm coming from also, privacy is mainly understood as a secrecy. Why do you need to keep anything for you from your family, from the government, which is an extension of a family anyway, in private? And that comes with the ownership, like what do I have to own as an identity? And there's so many aspects of that. What's interesting for me, and there are actually a couple of projects, the owners, the creators, let's say, they've been working on it like for years. Like, I mean, we are just talking about it because of the ChatGPT, but they've been working on the digital identity, creating like some sort of copy to the extent of making it an eternal entity with part of your knowledge, so it can generate sort of behavioral outputs just like you, which is a good thing. But then, and the basic, I didn't talk about core, but the core hub I recently opened in Batu Bilik is basically all about gathering the entrepreneurs around this conscious technology building habits, basically. Not just for the sake of the hype, which is usually the thing, and that brings money, of course, sure, and we all invest in these things, but it's also important to understand the consequences of the technology we are supporting to. And I think for AI is not that clear yet, basically. There are so many people I wouldn't necessarily want to keep eternally alive, like as minds.
But who decides that, though?
I can name a couple of presidents. I don't want to get into it live, but it's a hard thing. Because and it's also very essential for blockchain. If you want something for yourself and for some entity, you need to want it eternally. And core, basically, community and reciprocity, the mix of it. For me, it represents that. Reciprocity is wanting the same rights for the other person, and tech and blockchain is kind of like the only thing that gets closer to that, with the promise of closing the access gap and everything. And so we do some events together and talk about how to actually use this and merge these different cutting-edge technology to create startups and projects that we can be actually happy about the consequences, what we are contributing to. And the whole idea is to build a community-owned business model instead of there's one host and one business owner, one capital owner, and you come, and others are just kind of an audience, which is basically the algorithmic model of Web 2. But it can be applied. This mindset can be applied to any businesses. Actually, you don't need to be on chain, and I see that a lot. A lot of people try to be just on chain, just on blockchain, or do crypto projects for the sake of it because it's a popular thing to do and it's easy to fundraise, and then it turns into scam. Not because they are starting it to scam people or just to be criminals in the end, but it's because they're not doing it for the right reasons. So I think endorsing blockchain and AI also is all about trying to understand and unravel the essence of it, the basic ideological standpoints of it. And being in blockchain and having centralized points is also trying to find out how this place can generate revenue and opportunity for everyone. And that's we are trying to work out.
Beautiful answer. We're going to begin to. Anatoly has to come on as well. So all I can say is like this, right? You have a scientist over here, PhD, Mensa, and a psychologist over here. I could just jam out just on hearing them go back and forth for hours. And I'm sure they could. So I think there's a conversation that you two need to have as well, right? Which is phenomenal. So Melissa, Core Hub, where is it? Where can people find it so that they know how to find you and these events that you're putting on? So where is it?
Okay, thank you so much. So Wednesday we have an event. So every first Wednesday of the month, the last 3 years, we have S21 event. And we have regular events also at Core Hub Bali, which is in Batu Bilik, right after Café Del Mar, or coming from Batu Bilik before the bridge. You can't miss it. This Wednesday, we have this concept, every first Wednesday, the concept is Spill Yourself. And it's all about coming together. It's kind of an icebreaker concept for entrepreneurs and web professionals or any business owners and contributors, freelancers, to share the open mic and talk about themselves. 3 minutes fast pitch of their projects, what you need, what you can contribute to the community, and what you can basically offer and need. So this Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m., we have the event, and we'll have many. If you have any projects, if you have community, if you have anything to give to community or want to collaborate, come find me, and would love to discuss how to collaborate.
Beautiful. Everybody, round of applause for Melissa Kurtgen, Satoshi 21. So Hadis, if you can move these, yeah, thank you. So while we move these ones out, I'll grab that microphone from you. Thank you so much, darling. All right. So stay around. We're going to have a photo at the end. So we're running a little bit over time, as you might figure. But Hadis, could you move this one as well, please, my brother? Yeah, yeah. And as in, move this one out. Yeah. Thank you, my brother. Okay, so for those of you tuning in live, what we have is Thriving in Indonesia series. This is part 2. Today we've spoken about real estate, how to plug into real estate, sustainable real estate. And we've also spoken about blockchain and the fact that Indonesia is one of the biggest proponents of blockchain, I think, in the world. Don't quote me on that. And how it's really embracing blockchain for all of its merits going forward, and has one of the youngest, most uplifted, empowered populations to do so. So now the third one, our third and final speaker, is Anatoly Spektor. Now Anatoly, I've known for some time. He's been here. He's a family man. He has a podcast called the $1 Million Journey. 10 million journey, thank God. 10 million journey. It's a top 3% in the world podcast. He consults governments and billion-dollar companies, and he's also scaled 2 e-commerce businesses from 0 to 6 figures. Please put your hands together for Anatoly Spektor. Come on, brother.
Wow, amazing speakers. I don't know if I can match that, but I'll do my best. My name is Anatoly. I'm going to be short because we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that I answer any questions because there are a lot of people who want to be digital nomads, so I'll make sure I answer their particular questions. But imagine that. The company in China right now, while we speak, produces thousands of units of a product, my product. I've never been to China. I've never been to the factory. I don't even know the name of the guy who owns the factory. Then the truck comes, picks it up, and delivers it to the United States by ship, I guess. I actually don't know, by ship or by plane. And then it goes to a warehouse in the United States. I've never been to a warehouse. I don't even know the name of the guy who owns the warehouse. I don't know where my product is. Then the truck comes and puts it in the marketplace. In my case, it's Amazon. Sometimes sell it on Shopify. Then people buy those products. As we speak today, we probably sold 30 of those, making about $800. And I'm here in Bali. Everything happens in the US, in China, and all over the world. So that sounds like a magic, but a lot of you who want to be digital nomads. That's the reality of people who know how to create systems, how to find the right things that people need. So I'm going to shortly explain you how I did that. And I'm by no means an expert in that. That's why on a podcast where I interview the best minds in the world, how they do that. And I'm learning from them, learning every day. So I'm telling you my story, how I pick those products and what I do, and then answer your guys' questions. And I'm not going to tell about my backstory. I don't think it's relevant because we don't have enough time. So I think there are 3 things here. You need to find who are the people, what do they need, and give it to them. Sounds very easy, and in my mind, like my superpower is taking that complicated concepts like the whole e-commerce line and simplifying that to something very simple. So if you manage those 3 things, you can sell anything to anybody, anytime. And I also want to mention that I didn't mention before that I'm not actually working on any of this, so I don't contact I have 3 people team that I've never seen, but we work on a weekly basis and they run this business. So I don't even run it. And we made in 2 brands. One of them is doing about 200,000 in revenue. The other we sold about doing 200,000 revenue as well. So how's it working? I'll show you a few examples. The one that I can speak about, there was a girl that we met. She had a condition called PCOS, which is the issue where you have issue with your cyst and then you cannot get pregnant and you have pain. And I was asking her, so what medicine did she take? She was taking 2 supplements. One was called inositol, other was called decairoinositol. I went into Amazon and I looked for them, and all of them were selling them separately. So 2 bottles. And I thought, why are they separate? Why do you need to buy 2 of them? If you can put everything in 1 pill, and then it's more convenient to take 2, you can just take 1. And then the marketing was terrible. Everything looked like these drugs from the counter that you're afraid of. And I'm like, why don't we make it friendly? Female, like pink colors, and make it really nice so people think they relate to the product. We did just those 2 things. And the first day, without any marketing, once we put that on the market, we found a factory in US that did it, and then we combined them, we put it on the market. The first day, without any reviews, anything, we sold, I don't know, about 20, 30 units. Just people keep on buying it because nobody was doing that. But it's a simple thing if you look at the problem differently, and that's it. So we found who the target audience is, women who has PCOS, pretty easy. We found what they use this product, we combine two together, and we present in a package that speaks to them. And sounds easy? Not so easy. There's a lot of research needs to be done. But these days, there are so many tools that allows you to do that. There are tools that allows you to show products to your target audience, like you show them images. You don't have to build them. You do 3D render of the product. You show multiple versions and say, which one would you like? Which one would you prefer? You keep iterating, and you can ask your target audience. It costs money, but you do a lot of research to find the best product. So once you do that enough, and you get all the feedback from people, and I want to mention that what a lot of people do, you might be listening like, okay, he's doing that, I should go and sell PCOS medicine. Don't do that, because what a lot of people do, they see what's selling right now, and they try to sell the same thing over and over again, and they always fail. Because, well, it's so easy to do, just to go and create what somebody else did. But then you're competing with hundreds of other people who know way more about this market than you. So it needs to be unique, it needs to be interesting, but it just has to be complicated. One of the products we're selling is a recipe box. I don't know how anybody's using recipe box, but it's selling very well. So there's recipes, recipe cards, and people make recipes. We decided to sell recipe boxes for female who have expensive houses, because many of them look like crap. I don't swear on Rob's podcast, so I'll say, look like crap. So we did one that is white, beautiful text, bamboo, and then on the top we put a mobile phone holder. So they can look at mobile phone, what are the recipes, maybe they watch Gordon Ramsay or something. And this one thing, because we know that we did a bunch of research with a bunch of tools showing that, okay, this is a product that female will prefer, because we show them different renders, they like our renders the most. We see what brand name they like the most, what text they like the most, what color, what materials. So we did a bunch of those. I can share you some tools that we used. One of them called PickFu, but there are hundreds more that allow you to do that. And then we just priced it more than anybody else. So we priced it, I think, at like $40. Right now it's on discount because it's Black Friday, but we're paying it at $40 and outsell anybody else who sell it for like 20, 18, because we know who we're targeting. Female who make 100,000 or more a year, live in the United States, have big houses, so the box is big, it's beautiful, and they love it. Maybe I'll take some questions, because I can talk about it forever, but people want to be digital nomads. If you want to talk about automation, hiring, or doing systems,
we've got the third mic there.
Questions.
So if we slide that mic across over here to my Scottish brother.
It's a good timing, 5 o'clock.
I know. And Anatoly, I love it. He's like, boom, 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 we're done. Love it.
I'll just sit over
All
here.
right. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, just a quick question. So the basket with the phone holder, are you saying that you were essentially selling the products before you actually made the product, or are you making the product first?
We're making the product first, but we're testing the product. So we're creating a 3D render, then we're showing it to people who are paid to give their opinion of what they think about it.
Like a product tester?
Yeah, like a product tester.
Okay.
So we show them and say, what do you like, without phone holder, with phone holder, and why? And they give you feedback.
And then once you've decided on the product, you then
we build, then we create
a
a small sample, maybe like 500 units. We send them, and we see how it sells. If it doesn't sell, we quit the product, but usually it does sell because we do a bunch of research like that, so we know exactly what people need.
Yeah. Another really quick question. Sorry, guys.
Don't be sorry, because the questions that you have, probably other people have as well, so it's good you're asking.
Okay, awesome. So if you were someone totally new to starting an e-commerce business, what would you say is, if you really were going to put in a decent amount of time, what would you say the minimum amount of time you'd have to put in a week for it to be, successful? Let's say you were wanting 100,000 a year revenue. How much time would you say you'd have to be putting in roughly? And also, what sort of financial investment would be a good amount, would you guess?
It highly depends.
I know, I appreciate
on your product.
that.
I would say that if you're building product these days and doing what we are doing in Amazon, it needs to cost quite a lot. Like the price needs to be pretty big, because Amazon takes the cut and the shipping is expensive if you do it from China. So we say this recipe box costs like $40, but we're making, let's say, 40% of it. So it means that if you want to put the money down, how much money do you need to produce the first batch? Will probably be around $10,000.
Okay, awesome. Yep, thank you.
What was the other part of the question? How much time do you need? I mean, once you're learning, it depends. I would find some podcasts like mine or other ones that people explain you what they did and walk through the journey that will shortcut it. So I always try to find people who already did that and make them mentor you. That probably will take you, 3-4 hours a day. If you do it all yourself, trying to learn from scratch, then it will take you a lot of time. All your time.
10 million journey. The name of his podcast. Pass the mic over here. Great questions. Thank you. 10 million journey, right?
Yes.
There you go. I just double checking I got it right.
Like and subscribe.
like and subscribe. 10 million journey.
Love the story. Really resonated with me, particularly the part about the factory of your product being shipped right now. I got an online university right now. It's being used by over 1,000 people who learn how to be their own therapists. I don't know any of them. It's all magic to me. I can't believe that we can help so many people without being in a room with them. You're also an advisor, such as myself. And one of the challenges I often have is that it's not so much the answer that the person in front of me needs, but the right question in regards. And that's a challenge I'm facing with other people I'm doing these AI avatars for, because it's not enough to create these answer bots anymore. Ideally, what's really useful is that the person in front of us adopts the right philosophy about thinking through the problem. What's a question you feel like the people who work with you should have asked in the beginning that you are not asked as frequently as you should have?
Yeah, a lot of people I meet, they got into this, they get burned out, and then they really don't like what they do when they make millions of dollars, and I met many of them. So you need to ask, do you really like the products you sell? Because if you're committing to something, it's a long ride. And if you don't like answering questions about recipe boxes, then you're in trouble. If you don't care about your products, then you're just going to be burned out, and then you're going to most probably sell it or even fail. So that's the most important question.
Okay, thanks. Another question, your podcast first or mine?
Yours? I don't know.
Okay.
So mine? So like Daniel, I'm
happy with it.
Daniel's straight in. So any other questions? Yes, just over here, brother. Thank you very much, brother G. All right, maybe I can help you. Yeah, let me start it. Thank you. All right, we'll come this way. I see you taking notes. I'm so impressed. Because you're focused, and I see the pen going like this.
I have to say, it's so refreshing. I've only been here for about a month, and I've been looking for my community, and it's so refreshing to meet everyone here and hear about how you're like creating your own reality in all these different areas. My mind was blown as well with real estate, blockchain, and the e-commerce. I want to do it all. So thank you so much, firstly. I have a question, and it is this. Is it important to have a mentor in this space? Because it can be quite overwhelming, especially with social media. Every third person is saying, hey, stop scrolling. You can make this much amount of money. It's so easy. You should do drop shipping. You should do this. There's a lot of that information and a lot of overwhelm that is preying on people's vulnerabilities to want to be free with, abundance. Yeah. And if you have any views on that could support someone like me and anyone else that's feeling a bit overwhelmed with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. 100%. Mentor, 100%. If I didn't have a mentor, because when I started it was pretty early, so it wasn't that available. Now it's way more available, so I would 100% invest in mentorship. And most of the things that you see online, people say they made money, that's very questionable. So I would look at it through a big lens and filter and really find out who they are. Because people come to me and ask me to interview with them, we do background check, and most of them will say no, just because nothing adds up. So if people cannot show you what they sell, can I show you how the product look like? Can I show you the reviews? I would not trust them.
1 second, good. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know if it's just me, but when those people are posting these things and saying, oh my God, you can make so much money so easily, it just makes me think, why aren't you just doing that? Why are you driving this social media sales funnel so 100%. Hard every day when you can just do it yourself? So that's something that comes to mind.
Yes, that's a question you need to ask anyone who makes a course, like, why are you making money from the course and not selling? I don't have any courses, so sorry.
Great point. We're going to slide over to Melissa. Great. And by the way, here, didn't say before, but SpeakuP Monday is a talk show I started about 4-something years ago, where 400 episodes. We start 400th episode will be on Monday. It'll be a friend from the US who I've never met in person. This is so cool. We met on Clubhouse. Another story for a different day. Robert N. Johnson is the former vice president of a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So he's going to be here on Monday. Great guy, man. I've spoken to him quite for hours, I'd say, doing different rooms on Clubhouse, including a SpeakuP room. And he'll be here on Monday. But that show is for entrepreneurism and social impact. There's a QR code just over here. Make sure you scan it and join. Have some really interesting guests, and you get great communities around that of people that I think might be people that you would appreciate. So, where's Mike? Melissa, yeah, over to you.
So I recently found out that the dropshippers community in Bali is also one of the largest in terms of like the sectors and everything. Like, do you see any Southeast Asia specific differences? I mean, it's an international business, but do you think is there any difference in Indonesia, China, or like generally Southeast Asia for setting up a business, ease of like borders, custom and everything might be like notes?
I want to point one thing in. I don't do dropshipping, so there are the big difference between dropshipping and creating your product and fulfilling. So what dropshipping is, you find somebody who already create a product, you market that product.
Trading.
Yeah, and then you just buy from one place and they send it to another. It's a great model. We tried it. It didn't work for us because they were out of stock all the time and we had a bunch of returns. So what we do is we manufacture our product, send it to warehouse, and then selling it in different places. So I don't know about dropshipping community. Actually, I know there's a pretty strong community of Amazon entrepreneurs in Bali. Whoever's interested, let me know. There's a guy I know who has a group. I'm not active participant there, but there are a bunch of people who share a lot of value, so we can add you. In terms of Indonesia, I actually don't know. I cannot say. We're moving some of our business to Indonesia, but right now it's in the United States, so I can't speak to that. But I can show you, I can send you to a few people who has big business in Indonesia, so no problem with that.
So what we're going to do quickly, just to bring Terry on, we'll give him the third mic, just a few of the legal stuff around e-commerce in Indonesia, just in case it'll be of value. If we all shuffle across over here, mate.
I have to be in the
black box. The box.
Yeah, I think just a few observations similar to when we talked about blockchains, that the proactive Indonesian government is very much in favor of e-commerce. And I think when you look at the macroeconomics, it's set to be, when you look at Southeast Asia as a market, 50% of the e-commerce will be Indonesia. So it's huge market, huge potentials, and this all connects to the blockchain and to the cryptos and digital currencies. I think when you talk about the legalities and what you're doing, there is specific KBLIs or business codes for e-commerce. That part is probably not so difficult, but then it gets into the aspect of what it is that you're actually selling on e-commerce. Is it clothing? Is it education? Like clothing, it depends where it's sourced, where it's made, tax implications, and permits that you need for that. If it's a medical product, then you're dealing with BPOM or similar to FDA and approvals, which gets a bit complicated. Or education, then you need to deal with the Minister of Education, whether it's a non-formal or formal. So all of that, the actual business stream for the e-commerce is simple, but from then on, which direction you go will define a little bit on the complexity and how it works. And I think Indonesia, as said, they're very proactive and embracing these movements, but they're also very strict as to what they want out of this when it comes to taxation and so on. So they've taken on TikTok, they've taken on Google, all these big names to get what they want. Like TikTok was doing online sales, and they were told, we'll shut you off from Indonesia if you don't comply and register in the proper way, and they did.
Great. Thank you very much, Terry. So look, what we're going to do is, thank you very much. So look, we'll begin to wrap it up there. What we're going to do, before we wrap it up, just want to make sure that we get Terry, we get Melissa, and obviously you, Anatoly. We'll take a quick photo. And then what we'll do is we'll grab everybody together and grab a group photo. And again, IU, come over here, my darling. This is IU from Tropical Nomad, my sister, another sister. So many brothers and sisters, it's great. Right? Come here, darling, come on. Yes. So, say a few words. If you'd like to do an event here, da-da-da-da.
Okay, so hi guys, I'm Ayu. I'm working here for event organizer. So every day we will have event here in Tropical Nomad. So if you have time, you can always check our Instagram or website. There's always update event over there. So the events like Skillshare and then seminars and others meetup. So please check our website then. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister I really appreciate you, darling. She's amazing, by the way, and the whole team. Guzman, Hadis, beautiful people, great work. Thank you so much. It's been years we've been working together, huh? So just the final word from me is, so as I said, Robert Ian Bonnick, RIB and Associates is a consultancy that I founded. It's known as a growth strategist in Indonesia across about 10 different market segments, right? So in other words, we connect the dots for you to grow, for you to connect with the right people, the right resources, to make sure you have success. If we can be of any service, please feel free to check us out, RIB and Associates, or just SpeakuP Monday. We have a little QR code over here. Now, please, Terrier, Melissa, come on up, and I just want us all to grab some round of applause, because I think you guys are amazing. Not yet, when they're up. Come. So how do we do this? I guess Melissa here, Terrier there, me there. I don't know. We do this way. So from left to right, we have a Terrier, right? 7 Stones Indonesia. So 7 Stones Indonesia. If you vibe or gel with him, make sure that you contact them. If you're here in person, then you get to speak to him in person. That's why you should come. Next, Melissa Kurtkin, Satoshi21. So Satoshi21, as she said, the core hub, Bali, which is Batu Belig. If you guys know where Cafe Del Mar is, it's pretty close to there. So that's how you get in touch with her. Wednesday, that's tomorrow. Having a great event. So make sure if that kind of hits you in the right way, make sure you go, right? And then obviously we have Brother Anatoly Spektor, right? Again, 10 million journey. That's a podcast. Like, subscribe. We had a question here from my Scottish brother, a budding e-commerce man. Check it out. Click in. He has a incredible life. This guy actually, I wish I could use his brain because SpeakuP Monday with 400 episodes, but the way that he markets is like, that's why he's top 3% of the world. Also, he's good at what he does, and the guests are okay. They're brilliant, right? But he's brilliant at this, at scaling like that, phenomenal. And he's not just e-commerce, right? So when you look and you check him out on LinkedIn, you'll see that he is extremely good at systemizing business, period. Not just e-commerce. And that's why he consults billion-dollar companies and governments, because again, it's the way his brain operates. So again, a round of applause for all 3 of these wonderful people. Thank you so much. Woo! Yeah. All right.